You know, Ezra Pound and T.S. Eliot fighting in the captain's tower while calypso singers laugh at them and fishermen hold flowers between the windows of the sea where lovely mermaids flow. That's Eliot, all right. And the vision of modernism as the Titanic, the fight for this huge luxury liner that was modernism, was conducted between Eliot and Ezra Pound. I think it's been wonderfully fertilising for Dylan.
My own introduction to T.S. Eliot was rather bizarre, in that I was about 16 and living in the north of England in Accrington. I'd been sent to the library by my mother, Mrs. Winterson, to get her usual haul of mystery stories, because that's all she ever read. She'd heard the title, Murder in the Cathedral, and she thought it was some homicidal monk business. So I went and picked that up, but it looked too small to be a mystery story, because they're normally about 200 pages long, so I thought, I'll look at this. So I sat down on the library steps and opened it, and of course it was Murder in the Cathedral.
This is one moment, but know that another shall pierce you with a sudden painful joy, when the figure of God's purpose is made complete.
I opened it on the line, which said, this is one moment, but know that another shall pierce you with a sudden, painful joy. And I was having a terrible time, and it made me cry because I needed to think that there would be another moment and that there would be joy. And language to me like pierce and joy was fine because I'd been brought up fiercely religious. So I immediately read the thing through and found there just this, you know, this vigour, this muscularity, but also this aching sensitivity, which seemed to me to be exactly the container that I needed at that moment for my own very turbulent emotions.
7 years we have lived quietly, succeeded in avoiding notice, living and partly living. There have been oppression and luxury. There have been poverty and license. There has been minor injustice. Yet we have gone on living, living and partly living.
Well, Eliot himself said, if I understand a play the first time I see it, I become suspicious. I don't think it can be a good play. Well, no one could have understood any of Eliot's plays the first time through. I think they were sound dramas. I happened to talk to Alec Guinness. He was in the cocktail party. And at a final run-through, and they were called on stage for notes, E. Martin Brown was the director. Alex said to him, this last 4 lines, I can't say, there's something wrong with it. And I don't know what it is, but could we talk to Mr. Eliot perhaps about it? And he said, yes, and he made a note, and they went on talking, and then a figure came down from the back of the stalls out of the darkness, and it was T.S. Eliot, and Alec was rather shocked that he was there for the run-through. He hadn't been told. And he said, Mr. Guinness, would this be better? And handed him another 4 lines, which Alex said was superb.
Eliot's ambition was to write contemporary verse drama in the manner of the great Greek and Jacobean tragedies, which he so deeply admired. He wanted to restore the transcendental aspirations of the theatre and its moral authority, which he felt had been lost.
I think his mission statement would have been redemption. The sense that human beings can be redeemed through a religious means. It's in every play. It's in most of his poetry, I think, too.
Eliot's last play, The Elder Statesman, which he wrote in 1958, is dedicated to his second wife, Valerie.
How are we, Valerie?
Thank you.
Valerie Fletcher was Eliot's secretary at Faber and Faber for 8 years before he proposed to her in 1957. They kept their engagement a secret from even their closest friends and got married at 6 o'clock in the morning with only her parents present.
If you look at the first edition of Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, there's a cat climbing up a ladder. Well, Valerie went to an engraver and had this illustration engraved on a whiskey glass. So Tom would come home in the evening and she'd say, "Which step, darling?" Tom would say 1, 2, or 3, depending on how dreadful the day had been.
My mother used to read them to me, and I always loved them, and I had them myself, and I kept them for years. I always thought that there was something about them that was very musical, I guess. Because, I mean, it's got to be slinky. It had to be a kind of... A cavity, he's called the hidden paw. Because it all sets itself, it all comes from, you know, the way he spoke it. You could hear it, it's very, very musical.
I was sitting at Faber's and the phone went, and it was Andrew Lloyd Webber. And he said, "Are the rights free in Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats?" And I talked to Valerie, and she was a bit sort of unhappy about that. You know, I'm not sure Tom would have liked this. And Andrew said, "Why don't you bring her round to my flat in Belgravia and we can talk about it?" And Andrew was absolutely brilliant. He played on this wonderful grand piano and sang, and Valerie was absolutely enchanted.
The naming of cats is a difficult matter. It isn't just one of your holiday games.
I remember when the first cat appeared there, this hush, and then this absolute astonishment.
You may think at first I'm as mad as a hatter when I tell you a cat must have 3 different names.
That cats would come right up to you, and they'd come straight up to you and say, "The naming of cats is a difficult matter. It isn't just one of your ordinary games." It had them. I mean, people were literally sort of being buttonholed by cats.
On the first night, you could feel how wonderful they thought it was. And Andrew came up to me afterwards and said, "Matthew, this is going to make Faber's a fortune."
Cats opened in May 1981. It ran for 21 years in the West End and for 18 years on Broadway.
I'm so sorry.